Hello, everyone. This is your host, Debra Poneman, and I'd like to welcome you to our call with today's guest, Karen Curry. Karen is a human design specialist who, known for her humorous and easy teaching style, is passionate about helping people discover their unique magnificence and life purpose using human design, a personality assessment system based on the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu Chakra system, the Judaic Kabbalah, Eastern and Western Astrology, and quantum physics. Karen is the author of several books and travels around the world teaching people how, through human design, to unlock their true potential, make easy but radical life changes, and to remember the abundance of who they really are. Today, you're going to discover how to find your life purpose. Also, how to use your energy correctly and always feel vibrant and alive. How to master your emotional energy. How to find your unique work and money blueprint. And why you might be feeling stuck. And hopefully, how to unstick us. Karen, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the call.
Well, thank you, Debra, for having me. What an honor.
Well, as you know, I have been looking forward to this for a long, long time. So I am so raring to go. And I would love it if you could take a few minutes to share with us what you believe to be the major turning points that allowed you to manifest your really huge level of success with human design, and also how you became a human design specialist.
Wow. And I only have a few minutes to do that. I have an ongoing joke with a friend of mine, and we keep adding years as we go along. And I think the joke now is I'm a 28-year overnight success. But I would say certainly for me, the most significant moment was actually probably my darkest moment when I have 5 kids. And for a long time, I only had 4, and then I now have a 4-year-old that came along and surprised me many years later. But when my 4 kids were little, my marriage sort of abruptly ended, and I woke up with $400 to my name and $1,200 of rent due, and really a big challenge of trying to figure out how I was going to feed these kids and support these kids all by myself. And in that moment, that literal moment of waking up one morning and going, I don't know how I'm going to do this, I had this very profound sense of, and knowingness and awareness that I just needed to completely surrender every aspect of my life, because I had no clue. My brain had searched every potential option, and I literally had no idea how I was going to pay the rent, feed the kids. I didn't even know how I was going to make breakfast that morning. And in that moment of utter surrender, and I mean, literally me on my knees on the bedroom floor, all of the answers sort of showed up. And within 2 hours of that experience, someone offered me a job. Within 2 days of getting that job, I made enough money to pay rent and buy groceries, which was a big bonus in those days. And my life very dramatically and beautifully began to turn around. And part of that process was, very serendipitously, human design was kind of brought to me. I had discovered human design. Somebody actually brought me my chart back when I was still living as a suburban mom in Houston, Texas. And when I saw that chart, that human design chart, I immediately knew I had to learn everything there was about it. And I sort of started on this long journey of moving to Sedona, Arizona with my kids in tow, knowing that I needed to really let it show up for me and not go actively and dramatically pursue it. I very serendipitously stumbled upon the human design office in Sedona, which was at the time headquarters in Sedona, while I was taking my son to a doctor's appointment for an ear infection. So now I have this kid on my hip, and I'm coming out of the pediatrician's office, and lo and behold, in the office across the way from the pediatrician is the human design headquarters. And I immediately went, okay, this is a sign. I'm going to keep following this human design path, even though I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. So I walked into the headquarters, and as I opened the door, the woman behind the desk said, oh, did you come about the job? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And the lady said to me, well, let's talk about getting you started. And so without even knowing there was a job opening or applying for a job, I walked in and got a job working for Human Design America at the time. And as part of that journey, I got to study with the founder of the system, Ra Uru Hu, as well as I had access to all of the trainings that were available at the time that were recorded and in book form. And I sort of had my entire education with human design kind of beautifully, and I would say divinely given to me. And from that point on, I'm not going to say from that point on everything poof, clicked and magic happened and I was totally abundant all the time, because that's not true. But I will say that in the course of this sort of magical transformation over the period of a couple of months, I certainly began to get an awareness that there was this abundant, pulsing artery that was available to me when I surrendered and allowed myself to be a part of it. And part of that surrendering process meant I had to become radically authentic about who I am and what I'm here to do, and to courageously live that truth, which was really what human design gave me. And, in following that path, I certainly hit on that artery of abundance much more frequently than I did before I discovered it.
Wow. That is amazing. And talk about serendipity, all of the different events that led to what you're doing now. But I just have to honor you for following the breadcrumbs. And really, because now the world, and certainly those of us listening, are benefiting from you having done that. So I think the best place to start out with my questions, what is human design? Because some of us, as I mentioned to you before we went on the air, I must have had, I don't know how many people in the last few years, maybe the last few decades, say to me, "You've never had a human design reading?" Like I was some deficient person because I've never had a human design reading. I'm thinking it's probably because I was waiting for Karen Curry. But can you tell,
that's sweet.
You can tell us what human design is.
Well, human design, I'm going to give you sort of the techno version of what it is, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how you can really use it practically in your life. Human design is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the chakra system, Kabbalah, and quantum physics. And just like with traditional astrology, you calculate it using your birth date. We have a computer program that you use, and you put your birth date in and it generates a chart, just like with astrology. But it's very different than astrology, or really, frankly, any of those other esoteric, sciences. The beauty of human design and what it does that I think is so very uniquely different than anything else that's out there is that chart that gets generated is basically a map, or I always think of it as like if you build a house or you remodel your house and you do the electrical part, there's a map for how the wiring works in the house. It's not just a bunch of wires shoved in there and poof, voila, you turn the light switch on and it works. There's much more to it than that. And your human design chart is very much sort of like that electrical map for your house. It shows you how you're energetically hardwired. And that awareness of that energetic hardwiring gives you insight into what are your strengths, what are your talents, what is your life purpose. It shows you where do you take energy in from the world, where perhaps are you vulnerable. It shows you where you carry your wisdom. It also gives you kind of an idea or a path for how you can consciously evolve to bring out the highest expression of yourself. And most importantly, it gives you, according to how you're hardwired, a very simple strategy for making powerful and good decisions. And as base as that sounds, sometimes it's much more sexy to talk about, I want to know about my life purpose and where am I in the Akashic Records and what's my soul's journey. And we love that stuff, right? But the truth of it is, if you really want to create an empowered life, an abundant life, a joyful life, you got to know how to make good decisions. Wherever you are right now in your life, you're right where you are right now because of the sum total of the decisions or the choices you've made in your life up until this point. And when you understand how you operate, how you're hardwired, what's best for you in terms of strategy for decision making, you can start making conscious choices that are going to take you in the direction of your life that's really in alignment with the truth of who you are. And Debra, I can't stress for you how important that is. I'm just reading a book right now. It's a book about being focused. I feel bad I don't remember the guy's name, but this journalist has done this synthesis of research on the theme of focus. And he talks about how part of the reason why people struggle with focus in our society nowadays is not only just, all the little distractions that we have, but that when we are not where we're supposed to be, meaning when we're doing work we hate, or we're not doing something that expresses the depth of our soul and the authentic richness of who we are, it actually stresses us out. We actually literally release cortisol when we're working in jobs we hate or we're not where we're supposed to be. And it starts to affect not only, our physical body by creating stress-related illnesses, it also decreases our motivation and our joy for life. And when you understand how important it is to be in the right place, doing the right work, giving your right contribution to the world, and how that will not only improve, obviously, your joy of life, but your motivation, your drive, your connection with other people, your relationships, your focus, your physical health and wellness. This is so crucial that we get this point right now.
And I couldn't agree more, because what I've noticed is that people are so stressed about finding their purpose. It's like it's replaced. I remember in the 90s, all anybody wanted was to have a BMW and a big bank account, during the dot-com boom, and beautiful clothes and a great place to live. And they're very stressed if they didn't have it. Now I feel people are stressed if they don't know what their purpose is.
And I actually taught a class about that last week, and I thought, I'll just do a little 2-hour teleclass about this. And I thought, I'll get a couple of people. We had over 200 people on the call for a paid class, and I was like, whoa, this is a big deal for people. They're really concerned. They want to know. Yeah.
Yes, and it seems to me that human design, it's kind of the, I don't want to say, done for you, but it might eliminate years of trying other ways to figure out what you're cut out for.
Well, I would certainly say, it's definitely not going to do it for you, because it is really more of a system that speaks to archetypes, and there's a lot of openness in terms of how you can interpret your life purpose for yourself, and a lot of other interesting factors that go into a chart. But it definitely is going to give you, I like to call it the instruction manual. It's like it shows you, okay, here's what I need to do so that I can lock into or be connected with or pulse with that artery of abundance that's out there, that's available to all of us, if we just know how to access it.
So you mentioned that there are archetypes. So there are, in human design, there are certain kind of categories of people?
In design, we call those the energy types. There are 5 energy types. And each one of those energy types has a basic purpose, life purpose, and ultimately their own unique style of making decisions. So the first type in the system is called the manifestor. Now, the manifestor, I always like to relate this back to building pyramids, because I think the pyramids are cool. So if you can imagine that a group of people decide to get together and build the pyramids, as at some point if this was a collective event, at some point, somebody got together and said, we got to do this, right? It's the manifestor who is the initiator or has a role in life to get the ball rolling. So the manifestor may have been the one that said, you know what, guys, let's just build these pyramids. They're the ones that get the project started, get it initiated, turn everybody on, and then ultimately kind of get out of the picture once it's gotten started. It's the manifestor that initiates the action. So the manifestor has a life purpose of kind of getting things started. The real key and the important thing to understand with the manifestor is they're not really the type that's here to sustain things. They're here to get it started and then get out. Manifestors are approximately 8% of the population. When we talk about manifestors, we're talking about what we oftentimes call pure energy people. These are people who have such a drive. It's not even such a drive. It's that they are purely creative beings. And they have sort of within them this almost nonverbal, inarticulate sort of creative flow. Like for most of us, when we go out and we create, we sort of have a linear sequential thing we do. Okay, we think, step 1, I'm going to do this. Step 2, I'm going to do that. Step 3, I'm going to do that. And if somebody stops and asks you, hey, Debra, what are you doing? You could probably sit down and go, well, here's what I'm doing. I'm doing this, 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 and this. And you could explain it and articulate it. A manifestor, because they are so in this creative flow, they really can't do that. For them to stop their creative flow, for them to find the vocabulary necessary to explain to you, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. It literally brings their whole creative process to a screeching halt. And so oftentimes in this process of going through their life and creating, when people stop and say, what are you doing? Which people will do oftentimes because people don't always understand what the manifestor is doing because they move way faster than the rest of us, okay? If they stop and they ask the manifestor, what are you doing? Or they say, can I help you? Which is what a lot of us ask the manifestor. The manifestor oftentimes will respond with anger, not because they're mad at you for trying to help or they're mad at you for asking what they're doing, but they get angry because it's very difficult for them to stop that creative flow and to articulate what it is that they're doing and try to explain it to you. And certainly if you've asked for help, it actually takes them more time to try to explain to you what it is that they're doing. And if you had just left them alone, they could have done it on their own. Thank you very much. And they get frustrated because, you know, their whole creative groove gets stopped or dampened down. So this is the decision-making strategy when we're talking about the manifestor, because every type, as we talked about, has a decision-making strategy. The manifestor is really the only type in the entire human design system. And again, remember, this is 8% of the population. The only type that can literally just go out and make things happen. You know, when we talk about manifest your destiny or just frickin' do it, these are some of the things we talk about when we talk about deliberate creation and or creating your success or creating your reality. You know, there are a lot of people out there telling us, just go do it. You just got to throw the spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, right? A manifestor can do that. The rest of us really can't. And I think this is probably one of the secret reasons why sometimes the strategies in the movie The Secret don't always work fully for all of us. It's not that the principles of deliberate creation and law of attraction aren't true. They are. It's just that we each have a unique way of engaging in those laws. And for a lot of us, going out and trying to make things happen just really doesn't work, and we don't quite get the results that we were hoping for. So for the manifestor, they can just go get it. They can literally just go make it happen. The challenge for the manifestor, though, is making sure that when they are in the process of creating these things, they have to be sure to stop, take an assessment of who's going to be impacted by their choices and by their actions, and make sure that they inform the people who will be impacted by their actions what they're doing. And that's not easy for a manifestor. That's difficult. But it saves them so much time in the end, even though it seems counterintuitive to that creative process. And let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you're a manifestor. And let's say you're going to have a nice stay-at-home movie night with your partner. And your partner goes into the bedroom to put on her sweatpants, and you go to the kitchen to go pop some popcorn, and you realize that you're out of popcorn. Now, as a manifestor, the natural tendency is to just go get in the car and go to the store and get some popcorn. So let's say that you did this, okay? Let's say you're a manifestor and you just went up and you left. Now, here comes your partner out of the bedroom in her sweatpants, all comfortable, ready to watch the show, right? And now you go into the kitchen and you realize, oh my gosh, my partner is gone. And you don't know where they are. You don't know where they've left to. You don't know if they're coming back. You don't know why, you just have no clue what's going on. And so, you're sitting in the kitchen by this time fuming because your partner's gone, right? And then your partner shows up in the driveway, comes in, I got the popcorn. And now, instead of having a lovely evening at home, you're dealing with a very angry woman who's mad at you because you left and you didn't take your cell phone and you didn't tell her where you were going and she didn't know if you were coming back. And how come you always do this, right? And now you have to deal with trying to tell this person, look, I was just going to get popcorn. I'm sorry, right? How much simpler would it have been for the manifestor if the manifestor had simply said, hey, I'm going to go get some popcorn and I'll be right back. It's informing. But the manifestors, that creative flow, really, it's not a natural thing to stop and tell people. But if they can do that, it ultimately saves them an enormous amount of time, an enormous amount of struggle, and frankly, oftentimes, a lot of anger in response to their choices. Make sense?
Absolutely. I have one of those in my life, so thank you.
My sister is a manifestor, and it's funny because they have a very strong energetic presence, and people really do notice, their presence or their absence. And I remember one year at Thanksgiving, she got up, she's sitting at the head of the table. She was hosting Thanksgiving. She got up to go in the other room to get salt, and the entire conversation in the room stopped, and everybody was looking at her, and she was like, what? I'm just going to go get salt. It's like her aura just had that much of an impact on us, so that when she got up and pushed her chair back, we were all sort of waiting there like, okay, what's she going to do? So It's a funny energy.
You know, I have to tell you, my son is actually, everything that you said, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's Daniel, that's Daniel, that's Daniel. And even when he was little, he did the most magnificent things that nobody could believe that he would manifest them. And then he would get tired of them so easily and move on to the next. There was no interest in sustaining. I mean, he was like 8 years old. He started trading Pokemon cards on the internet and started this business that was, but then he got tired of it. And he was the kid in the math class that when the teacher said, show all of the steps that you took to get the answer, he couldn't do it. And he would get in trouble for it because he would just look at the problem, see the solution, and be done with it. And he couldn't map out all of the steps, and it would always come up in my parent-teacher conferences. I wish I could have said to the teacher, excuse me, but he's a manifester.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and I mean, I always think, gosh, if people could know this about their kids especially and understand that so many of the things that we think are problematic or character flaws are really just inherent in how people are, and if we can just reframe it and see it for what it is, it really isn't a problem. It's really just the way somebody's hardwired. And they're not, you know, kids like, I mean, I have a son like that too. It's like he's not intentionally, you know, not doing his homework right. That's just not who he is. And it's a very difficult challenge to try to force him to be something he's not. So,
wow. Okay, what's the next one?
The next type in the system is called a generator. Generators are approximately 35% of the population. So a generator has a life path that's all about working and doing. So the generator is the doer in the equation. So the generator really is, if we go back to the pyramid building, it's the generator that's really the guys that are carrying the stones or pulling the stones and putting them in place. The true path of the generator is to become a master and ultimately to become a master of their right work. So generators really have to find their right work in life, and it's in that finding their right work that they really, first of all, turn on an enormous amount of energy and discover for themselves an enormous amount of joy and life force energy. The generator is here to work. They love to work. When they find their right work, they hate weekends. They don't want to stop. They love their work. It's part of who they are. But the challenge for the generator is this. Generators cannot go out and manifest things. They can't just go make things happen. The generator has to wait for things to show up in their life and then respond to them. You've heard of following signs, right, or following clues. You said breadcrumbs earlier when I was telling you my story. The generator has to wait for the breadcrumbs or the signs or the clues to show up. So if a generator wakes up one morning and says, oh, I got this great idea, I'm going to go teach this workshop. And that's what a lot of generators do. They get this idea and then they think, I got to go do this. And they go out and they try to make this happen. You know, they go rent the room, they go make the flyers, they come up with a cool title, they get their little PayPal button ready, they do their little PR piece, and they go do their workshop, and in their mind they're visualizing, I'm going to have 35 people, right? And then it becomes the night of the workshop, and they go to the workshop, and they, go to teach the workshop, and maybe 2 people show up, and they're very discouraged and disheartened, and they think, oh, how could this not have worked out? I did everything right. I visualized it, I did all the work, I set it all up. But the one piece for the generator is that if they're just following what comes up in their head and they're not waiting for confirmation from the universe or from source, they're not waiting for confirmation in their outer reality to say, yes, indeed, this is the direction in which they should go, then things don't work out the way they imagine. And this is a really big chunk of our population, and I think this happens to a lot of us. We have an idea, we have a thought, we don't wait for the confirmation to show up, we just go out and do it. And when we just go out and do it, it doesn't work out the way we thought. And then we feel frustrated. The generators have a tendency to feel frustrated. I'm doing everything right, and it's still not working. When the generator waits to respond, when they let things show up and they follow that path, things start to click differently. I like to say the generator dances with the universe. When the generator has an idea, the universe brings through a confirmation. And when the generator sort of dances along where that confirmation is, there always the next step is revealed and always the next opportunity is revealed. And you really don't have to, this is the cool part about being a generator, you really don't have to figure it all out in your head. You really can just sit back, let the universe show you what the next step is, and just keep following the clues. So it's a very different way of being in the world and very kind of counterintuitive to how most of us are raised. I mean, we're taught, go out and make it happen. And for a generator, you can have a certain degree of success. The generator does have energy for working. The generator can kind of fake it to a certain degree, but it'll never be the way, the type of success that they imagine in their mind. It's always sort of a disappointing or a frustrating level of enjoyment of what's possible. And that vision that they have never quite fully comes to fruition if they don't wait and dance with the universe. The third type is sort of a hybrid between the generator and the manifester. And this third type is called the manifesting generator. This third type is also 35% of the population. And just like a generator, the manifesting generator has to do everything that a generator does. They have to wait for things to show up in their outer reality. They are just like the generator. They are here to find their right work, or rather to let their right work find them. They are here to work and lay the building blocks of the world. So in the pyramid analogy, it is also the manifesting generator that is also building actually laying the stones of the pyramid. It's a building, energetic, working kind of an energy. But just like the generator, they have to wait to respond. The thing that makes them just a tad different, and it's not huge, but it's just a tad different, is that they can have some of the qualities of a manifester, in that they can also have that nonverbal creative flow. They can also have that anger response sometimes if somebody asks them if they want help or if they need help. So a manifesting generator doesn't often like to be helped, not because they don't appreciate the offer, but again, there's that, I have to slow down. I have to find the words for my creative flow. I have to explain it to someone. And in the time that I've done that, I could have probably done it faster myself. Manifesting generators tend to move pretty fast. And to a certain degree, the other part that makes them a little bit different than the pure generator is that the manifesting generator, by nature, is designed to do more than one thing at a time. So a manifesting generator really needs to multitask to feel good, and they need to be busy. Busyness that kind of drives them, because they have a lot of extra energy, and if they don't keep it occupied, they can get very frustrated as well. So very similar to the generator type, there's just the speed issue and the multitasking issue that sets them apart a little bit.
Do they also hate weekends? Because I think
they also hate weekends, very much so. I'm a manifesting generator, and I'll tell you, I always am sort of embarrassed to share this story with everybody, but I love my work. When I found my right work, or I really literally, my right work found me, I couldn't stop. I still can't stop. I mean, 14 years later, I still wake up every morning going, this is what I get to do? Cool. But for a lot of years, when I was raising my family, I raised all my kids by myself. I was like, I'm looking at other people in their quote unquote normal lives, and I'm thinking they're a little more balanced than I am. I mean, I literally was sleeping with the laptop under my bed, checking my emails at 2 o'clock in the morning, just because I like to see, how are people responding to this, right? And I finally thought, okay, that's a little whack. You gotta have some downtime. And I went on vacation with my kids, and we went camping for 4 days. And I did not bring my work, obviously. And I literally had like an identity crisis. I remember just sitting in the wilderness going, who am I? And then I thought, this is crazy. I've got to have a day off once a week. So it took me almost 2 years to train myself to take Saturday off. It was the most stressful thing I've ever done, is to try to take a day off. And I finally have it mastered now. Now I'm kind of thinking, hey, maybe 2 days a week would be interesting. But it's hard. It's really hard. And I know that even though my body's not doing work, I know my brain is still going, oh, I could do this. I could do that. What about this? Oh, let's think about that. So it's not so easy.
I've always been this way, that I don't like, my friends will go off to some movie and I look at them like, really? When there's so much work to be done, you're going to go like just sit around and watch TV? I don't think I watched a TV show in decades, unless it was something I had to watch for my work. I don't get it. So why? But now I could have more tolerance for people who watch TV.
Well, and some people really need to. And this is the beautiful part that I love about human design, is that there are really, truly, the generators and manifesting generators, they're here to work, and they love to work, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a manifestor, for example, the initiating type, they don't have the same quality of sustainable energy, and they're not, they need downtime. They need time when they're not working, and so do all the other types. The other two types, the projector and the reflector, which I'll talk about in just a second, they're not here to work, at least not in the traditional way of working. and slowing them down and helping them see that and helping them understand that for them to maintain optimal wellness in the, physically and emotionally and energetically, they've got to have cycles of rest. And certainly if they're working, they've got to be conscious of, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 is not necessarily the best way for them to be using their body and their energy. And we have a lot of judgments in our collective consciousness about that. We have belief systems that say if you want to make money in the world, you got to do what? You got to work, right? And if you want to make more money, you got to do what? You got to work more and you got to work harder, right? And truly, for manifestors and projectors and reflectors, it's definitely not about working more and working harder. It's definitely about working smarter and working in a way that really matches your energy so that you're using your gifts but not burning yourself out. And burnout is a big, big issue for some types because, we're trained to work, and that's not healthy for some people, literally.
Well, then let me hear about the last two, because maybe I'm not a manifesting generator. And I think that probably everybody who's listening is like, oh, I'm a manifestor. Nope, I'm a
Everybody
generator.
thinks they're a manifestor.
I'm a manifesting generator.
Everybody goes, I'm a manifestor. And then they're like, wait, really? When they get their chart, they're like, I'm not a manifestor. I had deep grief when I first got my chart. I was like, I'm not a manifestor? How could that be? But the next type is called the projector. Projectors are approximately 20% of the population. So the projector has a life path that is about managing, guiding, and directing other people. So the projector, if you go back to the pyramid building analogy, is the projector that's the construction manager. This is the guy sitting in the chair with the big megaphone going, okay, put that block over there. I'll move over to the left. Okay, now you put that block over there. That's the projector. And it's the projector that ultimately sort of guides and manages all of the workforce and the creative energy. And it's a very, very important job because without that director, there's just a bunch of guys laying stones down and maybe they'll get it right, maybe they won't. Maybe some of the stones will slip and some people will get squished, or the pyramid will fall down once you get it built. The projector is crucial to managing and guiding that workforce energy. But the projector of all the 5 types really kind of has a more challenging adventure in life because first and foremost, the projector is definitely not here to work in the traditional way that we think of as working. But the projector, though, usually thinks that they are super workers. They usually think that they're the ones that can do anything and everything because truth is, when they look at life and they look at how people act and how people behave, they are so beautifully wise. They know exactly what needs to be done to make it happen and to make it happen right. And for the most part, the truth is when they look at the world, they're probably a little bit bitter or frustrated that it's not working out the way that they know it could be. They can see perfection. They can see the whole picture. They can see what needs to happen. And as they go out in the world and offer up that advice, people don't often listen, or people don't pay attention, or people don't understand, who is this person over here telling me what to do when, they're not out here doing it. They're not in the field doing it. They're not here making it happen. And people tend to discount the advice of the projector, and here's why. Projectors are here to manage and guide specific people. It's almost like they have their own tribe. They have people who they are here to find, or rather who are here to find them. For them to really share the wisdom of what they have to offer, they have to be recognized and invited. And if you think about how we're raised and how we're conditioned in our society and how we're taught to go out and make it happen, and if you have a life strategy that says, I need to sit back, I need to wait for the right people who recognize my wisdom to find me and to ask me or recognize me or invite me to share what I know, that's just completely flipping counterintuitive, right? I mean, how is that going to happen? And if I sit here and do nothing and wait for somebody to ask me, nobody's going to ask me. That's what a lot of projectors believe. And so consequently, projectors give up the waiting very quickly and go back out and try to force things to happen. But the truth is, if a projector's out there trying to force things to happen, it really doesn't work for them the way that it does for most people. They really can do everything, quote unquote, right, probably better than right, and they won't seem to get the same results. And they think, it's because I failed, there's something wrong with me, I'm broken, I'm blocked, I'm stuck, I need energy therapy, I need acupuncture, I need whatever, and that's not it at all. It's that they need to wait for the people who recognize the wisdom of what they have to offer to find them. And that waiting part can be hard because for the projector, this is for the generator and the manifesting generator, life is always giving you something to respond to. You can go to a movie, you can go out to eat, you can go do your laundry. It's always something for you to respond to. As a projector, it's all about waiting for a recognition and invitation to the big things in life. In between, you can do whatever you want. But in terms of moving or getting married or getting a job, those big invitations, they happen when they happen, and sometimes they don't happen as frequently for you as a projector as they do for other people. And it can create, really frankly, a certain amount of bitterness, and that, why does it always seem so easy for everybody else and I have to do all this struggling? Why don't people hear me when I know that what I have to offer is really valuable and important? Why is it that when I try to do this, my energy goes away? Or why is it that when I try to share what I know, people react to it the wrong way, and they think I'm being critical, or they think I'm criticizing them, or they think, I'm bossy, or they think, I'm jumping in with something I shouldn't be jumping in with, when in fact I know. So there can be a lot of pain, in being a projector and really learning how to recognize that wisdom that is who you are, and giving yourself permission. And it takes a huge leap of faith to kind of sit back and wait and see what invitations show up. And especially as, you're waiting and people are saying to you, why don't you just go out and get a job? Well, you need to go apply for things. You need to get out there. You need to put yourself out there. People need to see you. And that doesn't work for a projector. You can put in 400 different, job applications and never get a single call back if you're not waiting for people to see you first. And other people don't have that same experience. It seems to be much easier for you. The beauty of a projector is, they have an incredible amount of important information. My most valuable resources in terms of people in my life are my projector friends. I have some very close projectors who I don't make a move without calling them up and saying, what do you think about this? What should I do about that? I want their insight because they naturally can see things I can't see and sense things I cannot sense. But imagine, and you probably can imagine this, Debra, because you are a projector by your chart. When you go out and you try to offer advice to people who you're close to, if they're not asking you first, it probably gets misinterpreted sometimes, yes?
Oh, boy. I wait to be invited because I had too many bad experiences, because I see exactly how people are hurting themselves. I've said this before. I see what people are doing in order to sabotage their success. I see exactly what they need to be doing in order to create success, but I do not tell them unless they ask.
Good for you. Very good for you. Because
I learned my lesson.
It's a big deal. I mean, you really kind of, with your chart, you're a projector and you're kind of a karmic mirror. And this is true of a lot of projectors. People will sort of heal their issues through you, but that means that you sort of get sucked into their stuff, And of course, when your inclinations go, wait, no, here, let me tell you what's going on. And then they're projecting their stuff through you and you're trying to help them and they're not asking you, it can get pretty messy and frankly, for a lot of projectors, pretty painful if you don't, understand that you need to wait for people to ask. And when they ask, to share the wisdom that is you, and to only do that when somebody asks, and to not take all the personal stuff that gets projected onto you personally.
So karmic mirror, explain that again.
I would say when you're a karmic mirror, it means people will project onto you, and this is the projector part of the projector. People will often project onto you their own issues, their own challenges, their own dysfunctions, okay?
Oh, my goodness.
They will sort of, accuse you oftentimes of doing things or saying things that are actually their issues and their challenges, not yours at all.
Oh, welcome to my world. Oh, I wonder if my 20%ers out in the listening audience, they're like, yeah, Deb, that's you and me. And so if you're a projector, are you a projector your entire life, or can these change, or you're born with one human design and that's what you are your entire life?
You are what you are, and that's it. In this incarnation, absolutely. You will live out the story of your energy type for your whole life. So your whole life path for you as a projector, Debra, anybody out there, your whole life path, your type will be unfolded for you your whole life. And it's your strength, it's your gift. The projector, let's talk about just the projector. If you can wait for people to ask you and recognize you, what you are here to give people is invaluable. You give people direction. You teach them how to use their energy. You teach them how to use their consciousness. You teach them how to maximize, their life experience. And, when you're giving them that insight, that wisdom, that beauty that is you, then you are empowering them really to get the most out of their lives. How valuable and precious is that? But again, if we're not engaging in that correctly, if you're a projector and you're out telling people your opinions, my youngest daughter is a projector, and she's the only projector I've ever raised, okay? And she's 4. It's such a natural instinct, okay, for the projector to do this. I mean, this is who they are. And I'm watching this unfold in this 4-year-old. I have started to lock the back window of my car when we drive, because we will stop at traffic lights, and we live in the city, so there'll be a bus stop at a street corner. She'll roll down the window and she'll say, "Hey, you, why are you smoking? Don't you know that's bad for you?" Or she'll say, "Why aren't you wearing a helmet, man? You should be riding your bike with a helmet on. What's the matter with you?" It's like she'll be guiding people. She started doing this when she was 2. She was yelling at people off the balcony where we lived who weren't wearing their bike helmets. We lived near a college campus, and she was yelling at all these college kids who weren't wearing their helmets. And, I'm working really hard to tell her, you have to wait for people to ask for your insights and awarenesses, because if you're just out there yelling stuff, people aren't going to hear you. And she's completely adamant that I've lost my marbles. But it's a pretty interesting and powerful phenomenon. And, of course, again, the other part is, you can't just go make work happen if you have this energy. It's difficult.
I just have to say, the image of a 2-year-old yelling at people to wear their helmets is making me laugh. That's so precious. I gotta meet that girl.
And it isn't,
my kind of girl.
Yeah, exactly. But definitely, it's been an adventure to really work on helping her understand. Of course, she's 4, so we haven't gotten there yet. But trying to teach her, that you are so precious. That what you have to share is so valuable. Don't waste it on people who aren't asking you.
Ooh, that is so beautiful. I just have to tell you a very, very quick story of something, when you say that we're a karmic mirror for other people, I have had that situation. Like, I can't understand why people don't like me, because I'm like, I love people. I feel like I'm one of the nicest people on the planet, and people find fault with me, this and that, and I'm realizing that karmic mirror thing. And I thought of something that happened when I was 18. I was raised in the 60s, and we had these things called encounter groups. You're probably too young, but we would tell people truth. And I remember being the person that was in the middle of the circle, and people were going around, and you would say about the person in the middle of the circle. And this one guy, I remember like it was yesterday. His name was Chip, and he played the flute, and he wore a beret, and kind of a mild-mannered guy. And he says, you're so loving, and you're so caring, and you're so nice to everybody, and you're always uplifting people, and you're always concerned about the underdog, and you make me sick.
Oh, gosh.
And I realized at this moment, here I am, how many decades later, because that was so jarring to me. Mm-hmm. But it was the projector thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I took it personally, oh my gosh, I make people sick. But, I'm realizing now that's just a role that projectors play in the scheme of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I said, it can be really, frankly, heartbreaking when you don't understand that. And I joke, probably about 85% of my clients are projectors. And, I feel like I do projector rescue squad, because I'm having to find these people who have this lifetime of, first of all, working too hard to the point where they've totally burned themselves out, and then trying to help them understand that, all those times when they've shared what they know and shared their wisdom and knowledge, and people haven't listened, or people have reacted badly, or people have accused them of being critical or criticizing, that's none of that has been about them. It's been about understanding how your energy works and operates, and really working with that in a way that is good for you and healthy for you and strong for you. And if you're not doing that, it's so easy to get completely devastated in the incorrect use of your energy. So, and I find too, even with your listeners, I would say it's quite possible that there's an uneven amount of projectors in your audience, just simply because I find that a lot of light workers are projectors. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. If you're an intuitive or an energy healer or, a coach, that's the perfect place for someone whose life path is to manage and guide and direct others to find, joy in their employment. And I think, frankly, that's probably also the reason why kind of as a collective profession, we tend to, I think, struggle more financially than a lot of other professions, just because I think the energy of working is just not there in the same way that it is for, say, somebody with, a different kind of a job, somebody who's working as a waitress or somebody who's doing hard physical labor. They probably are hardwired and configured a little bit differently naturally, and that's why they're kind of drawn to that more physical quality of work.
And before you tell us what the final 2%, who they are, one of the things you said is that projectors work too hard and they burn themselves out. So everyone listening, take some rest. Am I right?
Take some rest, and then, have the courage to ask yourself, am I doing what I want to do? And am I in a position that I can let go of what I'm doing if it's not correct? And do I trust the nature of the universe enough to allow the invitation and the recognition to show up, even if it means I have to wait a little bit longer than everyone else?
Beautiful. Okay. Who are those last 2%?
Our last type, the last type is called the reflector. And the reflector is actually less than 1% of the population. Reflectors are here to reflect the health of the world or their community back at us. So they're kind of the canaries in the coal mine. So if we're going back to our pyramid building analogy, if the reflector, we would hire the reflector to kind of hang out around the pyramid building site. And if the reflector was happy, we would know that we were doing a good job. And if the reflector was depressed or sad or stressed, we would know that something was going on the job site that we needed to pay attention to, because the reflector would be the reflection of the energy around them. The reflector has a very unusual life path, of course, being kind of a rare type to begin with. They have a decision-making strategy that involves waiting the full cycle of a moon, or 28 days, before they make a decision. And part of that's just because they are so sensitive to the energy around them. It takes them a long time to tease out, is this my energy or is this somebody else's energy? And they need that time to really get clear. Otherwise, they can jump into decisions and be really disappointed about the outcome. My favorite example of a reflector is Michael Jackson. And I think if you look at his life and, how much he was constantly evolving himself to be a kind of, I think, morph into some kind of expression of this energy that he was experiencing. And you look at, I think, the challenges and the struggles that he had as a reflector in a community or in a professional community, that I think, obviously, if we look at him from the context of him being a reflector, obviously was somewhat of a dysfunctional community. I think he was giving us a pretty interesting message about, he has a song, The Man in the Mirror, giving us a pretty interesting message about the people we are in the mirror, and kind of inviting us to step into, at a certain point, a reevaluation of what does it mean to be entertained, and what is this industry really all about, and what are we doing here? To me, he's a really sobering example of a reflector and a message that I think he was giving us with the story of his life, which ultimately, as we know, ended quite tragically. So it's a very different way of being in the world, for sure, and certainly very different than go out and manifest your destiny. So,
wow. I cannot believe how this time has absolutely flown by. We can go for another hour plus. We could probably go for days.
True.
Yes. What I would love to hear is maybe a few instances of how people took what you teach, learning about their own blueprint, and how they used it in their own life to have a turnaround or to get unstuck or whatever. Can you give us a few examples?
I have two examples that I just are absolutely my favorite examples. My first example actually happened very early in my career of being a human design specialist. And I had a client who was an engineer, and he was really struggling in his job at work. He was assigned to be a project manager, and was really, to be honest with you, he just sucked at it. And, he sucked at it to the point where they were giving him all kinds of warnings and telling him he was going to get fired if he didn't improve his job performance. And he was just like at a loss for what to do because it just really wasn't his strength to be in project management. So we ran his chart, and what we saw in his chart was that a lot of his energy in his chart was all about starting things. He was all about, getting things rolling, getting things initiated, bringing in new things, but definitely not about project management at all. So we had I worked with him for a while, and finally he decided that he was going to go back to his company and say, look, I need to be reassigned. And after a long conversation with his higher ups, they said, okay, we're going to do this. We'll shift you over into project startup and see how you do over there. But this is it. This is your last chance. So they moved him over into project startup instead of project management, and he loved it, and he excelled at it. In fact, he excelled at it so much that they actually promoted him to be sort of head of project startup in all of Europe. So he really found his right place and really was in a place where he was doing what was correct for him energetically and really started to thrive and love his work. And, of course, obviously created for himself the success that was in alignment with that perfect place. My second favorite example is actually my ex-husband, who, because of human design and our understandings now of our unique energies, we're good friends. But since our divorce, we've actually become really best friends because we now know who each other is. And, of course, during the course of our marriage, we kind of didn't. But when we got divorced, he decided that he was going to absolutely follow his human design strategy to a T. He is a projector. So he said, I'm going to sit on this couch, and I'm going to get a job by sitting on the couch. And he wanted to be an actor, and he'd studied acting for a lot of years and was taking acting courses. But other than going to his acting courses, he didn't do anything but stay at home and sit on the couch. Now, you can imagine that everybody freaked out about him. Everybody was telling him, no, you can't do this. You've lost your mind. You need to go out, get a job. You're crazy. You'll never get an acting job sitting on the couch. Got to go to auditions. You got to put yourself out there. He said, nope, I'm going to sit on this couch. So he sat on the couch for 3 months. One day, this beautiful woman rang the doorbell, and of course he got off the couch for the beautiful woman, right? So he goes and he answers the door and strikes up a conversation with this woman who's rang his doorbell. And she's going door to door selling coupons, those little coupon books. And they start chatting, and she says, you're a really funny guy. And he says, well, thank you. And she says, you should come downtown. I work at the comedy club, and we're holding auditions. It's an improv comedy club. We're holding auditions, and I think you would be fabulous. Well, he just got an invitation, right, as a projector. Somebody invited him. So he goes down to the big improv club. This is a big city, it's not some little city. So he goes down to the improv club. He does the audition, his only audition he's done in, really ever in his whole life. He goes to his one audition, gets the job, and lands this like dream job for many actors in this improv comedy club and has a blast. Now, the reason I share that story is because I think it took an enormous amount of courage and trust in the universe to take that bold of a stance to say, I'm going to really be who I am. I'm going to do things in a way that's correct for me, and I'm not going to compromise. And he did it. And the results that he got, I think, are really sort of serendipitous and mysterious, but not so mysterious when you understand how the nature of a projector's energy field works. He did everything exactly right, and it worked out perfectly. And certainly it was a transformative experience for him because all of his life he had been pressured to go out and to work and to be very much untrue to his authentic self to a point where, he physically literally kind of came apart because he couldn't do it anymore. And, this way of being in the world, this way that was so correct for him really showed him, and I think, many people since, because I use this example all the time, that, when you give yourself permission to be true to yourself and you take a risk, a leap of faith, whatever you want to call it, to trust the universe enough that the right thing will present itself to you in a way that's correct for you, the payoff is beautiful. The payoff is, unbelievable. But you got to know how to do it. You got to know who you are, and you got to know what your unique decision-making strategy is so that you can line up with what's correct for you.
Mm-hmm. And those are fabulous examples. And I assume that in the package that you put together for us, we'll go much more deeply into the human design for each of the types and learn more about our unique decision-making strategy and know how we can use that and so much more to create some really glorious abundance and success and happiness in our life. So I am ready to hear about the special offer that you've put together. And everybody, I highly encourage you to go to Karen's special offer right now and experience it for yourself. You could just click on the special offer button that's on this page. So, Karen, tell us what we'll find there.
All right. This is an exciting package that I'm kind of clicking my heels together 3 times and going, this is magic. Just because it is ultimately, I think the information in this package will be what takes you home to the heart of who you are. The first thing that I put in this package is I put the Human Design Level 1 Core course, which is 6 1.5-hour sessions. It was originally 6 weeks, 6 1.5-hour sessions, pre-recorded sessions of information that's going to talk to you about your type, your human design type, your human design strategy. What are some of the quirks and perks of being whatever your type is? And not only will you learn about just your type, you're also going to learn about all the other types. So not only will you gain deep insight into yourself with this program, but it also teach you about your friends, your loved ones, people you work with, people you might encounter. You know, what you'll start to discover as you learn more and more about human design is that you'll start to see that this is an archetypal energy that you can start using the knowledge of and the awareness of to deal with the world. And you'll start recognizing that, this person who's trying to sell me a car is a projector. And if I want a really good deal, I need to recognize him and invite him into sharing, his insights or his better deals with me. It gives you an insight on how to really interact more, I think, appropriately and more respectfully and more honoring in a way with the people in your life that you love, in addition to, of course, really getting who you are, really learning and grokking, what am I all about? What's my drive? What's my life purpose? How do I activate that? How do I make good decisions so that my life can start being a reflection of the beauty and the magnificence of who I truly am? That program comes with little videos that go along with it and little audios that we have and a set of nice home study questions. So it's a really nice, intensive introductory program that's going to give you really what I think the key basics to the human design system. But as I know, it's a home study program. I also know that sitting at home with a little, listening to my voice and seeing my image on the screen going blah, blah, blah for hours after hours gets really dull and boring. I also threw in the live weekly support that we have once a week on Mondays during the day. We have a live human design forum where you can call in and also you can email in your chart or any other charts that you want to look at. And you can actually talk to either me or some of our Human Design Standards Board's members on the phone and get your questions answered by a live human being and engage in, I think, some really exciting and fun conversations with the human design community. As you were saying earlier, Debra, we are kind of our own cult, and I mean that in a joking way. But this is a great place to connect with your fellow cult members and learn the vocabulary of human design and really connect with people and go deeper into your own chart, get your questions answered by a real live person. So even though there's a lot of home study program in this package, there is a place for you to come and really connect with someone and get your questions answered so that you're not out there studying this stuff all by yourself. I also threw in the Generator and Manifesting Generator course, which is part of the Human Design Specialty Series. This is a 2-hour program that specifically talks about what does it mean to be a generator or a manifesting generator and really go much more deeply into how can you bring out the best of your energy? How can you really find your right work? How can you really learn to respond to the world, dance with the universe in such a way that you really get to express the truth of who you are? I've also then included the Projector Survival Guide, which is one of my favorite programs that we have, which is an 8-week recorded program. It's 8 hours. It's over 15 hours, actually, and it includes MP3 audios as well as PDF downloads. All my projectors who take this class, they email me back going, I can't believe this. Finally, all of the questions I've had about my life have been answered. I get why I am the way that I am. I get why things haven't worked the way that I thought that they would. And finally, I have people around me, and I've had this experience with this program to help me understand that I'm not broken, I'm not screwed up, I haven't messed up, that this is just how I am, and I can learn to work with the truth of who I am and really bring out this beauty and not feel bad that I can't do things the same way that everybody else, that I have my own way of doing it. And it's a really, really powerful program for projectors or anybody who loves a projector. I didn't teach this one, actually. Kyle Curry taught this one. This is my ex-husband, who actually is a projector. And I had to go back and re-listen to it when I had my daughter because I thought, I need to know, what is it like to be a projector? I want to get in the projector head. So it was just an incredible program. The next thing I threw in there is a program I call Deconditioning by Design, which is a program where I married the emotional freedom techniques, EFT, with human design. And we talk about, over the course of 6 hours, we talk about how do you decondition yourself, meaning how do you work through all those beliefs about yourself or beliefs about how you, quote unquote, should show up in the world so that you can actually let go of some of these beliefs that perhaps are not serving you. Like, for example, you have to work hard to make money. That's a big belief. A lot of us have this belief. In this particular program, we're going to look at your unique human design, the belief systems that you have that may be generated in part because of your design, and we'll use EFT to help you maybe break through some of these resistance to letting go of these beliefs so that you can stay open to really experiencing the true flow of abundance for you that's in alignment with who you really are. So it's just a powerful way to let go of places where you think you might be stuck or blocked, and it really helps you understand your energy so that you can adopt new effective success patterns and release your pain and reconnect with the truth of who you are. And then I threw in here the Abundance by Design program. I used to teach a program called Prosperity Bootcamp, which was sort of my version of, actually I taught it for myself so that I wouldn't forget. Every week I got to teach abundance consciousness because I needed it. But what I found, over time with teaching this program, and I taught Prosperity Bootcamp every Thursday night for like 3 years, literally every Thursday night except for Thanksgiving. What I found was that people were showing up and they were doing everything right and it wasn't working. And I really started to realize, our unique human design energy blueprint influences and affects the way we create abundance. And so I redid the entire Prosperity Bootcamp program and created Abundance by Design so that you can start looking at who am I, how does my energy operate, what's my unique abundance blueprint energetically, and how can I start unlocking that blueprint so that I can start creating abundance in my life that's right for me. So it's a really, I think, frankly, a life-changing program that's going to show you exactly where you're stuck and how to help you apply the concepts of deliberate creation and law of attraction in a way that's right for you and your unique energy system. And then last but not least, because what's the point of having money if you don't have a soulmate, right? I threw in the Soulmates by Design program, which is a 2-hour program, again, from the Human Design Specialty Series, that's all about relationships, what makes relationships work, how are we attracted to each other, what are the mechanics of attraction, what's the best kind of partner for you, and how to make the most out of the partnership that you have so that you really can come from this truly unconditionally deep and loving place, not just with your love partners, but even with your friends and your family and even your children. So that's the sum total of the program. The entire program, the cost of the level 1 program is only $97. I mean, I'm throwing in when you count the Human Design Forum, the Generators and Manifesting Generator course, the Projector Survival Guide, the Deconditioning by Design, the Abundance by Design, the Soulmates by Design, I'm actually throwing in here over $600 worth of free bonuses to go along with that level 1 core program. So it's a really great deal. The most important thing is it's not just a great deal. This is information that I think if you've ever done everything right, you can't figure out why it's not working for you. If you're really not quite getting exactly what you're wanting to create out of your life, if you're close but you can't quite break through, the information in these programs I think is going to really give you what you need to break through so that your life becomes a beautiful and true representation of the beauty and the truth and the magnificence of who you are. And, as we talked about in the beginning, this is that piece that's going to help you find your right place, find your life purpose, discover why you're here, and not just discover it, but actually know how to make it real for you in your life, how to really live it. And I think that, to me, is an invaluable piece in terms of what you want to create with your life.
Well, this is phenomenal. Seriously, Karen, $97 is outrageous that you get all of it really is, and including this live weekly support, which is so vital for people to continue to use the tools. I mean, that's just like, the frosting on the cake. It's just phenomenal. And I have to say, something must be working if you actually have healed your relationship to the point that you're actually been working with your ex-husband and he's contributing to your work. That speaks volumes. And something else I want to point out is under the Deconditioning by Design, not only are we getting this complete human design program to catapult our lives into the glory that we know they're supposed to be, but we also are going to be learning EFT, which is a powerful modality to get rid of the blocks. And you're giving that to us in the Deconditioning by Design. I mean, this is beyond phenomenal. I just want to personally encourage everybody to take advantage of this, because this is just, again, it's fantastic. And thank you for putting this together for us.
Oh, I can't wait for people. I've had to do this. I've had people who have taken this package and have literally, I don't know how they've done it, but they've gone through it in 2 weeks. Now, I personally can't imagine you spending 2 weeks listening to me talk for almost probably about 5 or 6 hours a day. But, people will call me and say, this has made all the difference. I understand for the first time why I am the way that I am, and that it's okay for me to be this way. I'm not broken. I'm not stuck. I'm not blocked. I'm just me.
Wow. Isn't that what we all want, to get to that place of really self-acceptance and knowing the glory of who we are? And I could see that this is how we could get there. Everybody, one more time, just simply click on the special offer button that's on this page. One more quick question, actually. What have you seen in your many years of experience, the short-term results, like what people start experiencing right away from putting to use what you offer in this package, and what are the more long-range results that you've seen by people applying this program?
I have to say, Debra, the initial response that people have is somewhat what I would call intangible, but yet I think so profound. When I do a reading for someone, or they first learn about design, people, first of all, it's not usual for them to cry because, they say, wow, you've really seen me. I've really been seen for who I really am. And, the way I like to think about it is like, I think we all have what I call a secret self. Inside of ourselves, we all sort of secretly hope that our life is meaningful, that we have something important to give to the world, that we have a purpose, that we're here for a reason, that there's something special about us that, we've never maybe accessed sometimes, that there is something special and unique about us. And when you sit down and you learn your human design and you really get it, and, people, I think, really for the first time in their lives, oftentimes get confirmation that it's true. I'm here for a reason. I'm special. I'm important. There's something valuable that I have to give to the world. And it's good that I do this. It's not egotistical. It's not crazy. It's true. There's something about me that's really beautiful that I can give back to the world. And, when people get that experience, it's, again, it's not a tangible. It's not like they're going to go, okay, now I know how to make more money. Now I have better relationships. And now I'm going to have, my dream job. It's that piece, though, that I think opens the door to the rest of the stuff. It's when people get that peek into the truth of who they are, then they can go out back into the world and say, okay, if this is who I am, how can I start creating my life in such a way that it's a reflection of that truth? That secret self gets to come out and be not so secret. And they start with great courage making different choices that takes them in a direction that is much more aligned with who they are. And ultimately, they do create more money, better relationships, more job fulfillment, a life that is a true reflection of, what I always call that abundant artery that is, I think, the universe that's out there for us. They start to see how they can align with that truth in every area of their life. And it's a profound transformation. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a couple of years sometimes, but people will come back and say, I just actually got an email last week from someone who said, I had a reading with my wife a couple of years ago. We were on the verge of divorce. What we learned in our human design reading gave us the courage to rebuild our marriage, and we're now getting ready to adopt a child. That's so profound that just that little piece of information and awareness, not only, of course, kept these people together, but now creates this foundation for this new little person to launch his life as well.
Well, that is a beautiful story to end with. And also that this human design can not only help us find the appropriate soulmate, but to recognize that we might be with the appropriate soulmate, even though we're doubting it. And this could kind of shift that back into a greater understanding once we know what their human design is. So very beautiful. Wow. So any final words that you would like to share with everyone before we go?
I just have one last thing to add, and that's this. People often say to me, well, what can I do to make a difference in the world? I always say, let's talk about puzzles for a minute. In my house, when there's a puzzle, I have a dog, a cat, and a bunch of kids. Puzzles have a very short lifespan in our life. It's not, probably an hour before a piece is lost or chewed or mangled. And if you put together a puzzle and a piece is missing or a piece is mangled or chewed, the whole face of the puzzle is affected. The most important gift that you can give to the world is you playing your piece in the puzzle of humanity. When you are the fullest expression of yourself as yourself, when you are true to yourself, when you are fulfilling yourself and expressing your highest potential, the piece that you add to the world adds to the beauty of the entire face of humanity. You are the greatest gift you can give to the world. And I tell people, I don't care how you discover yourself, whether you do human design, Enneagram, whether, aliens come to you at night at the end of your bed and tell you this is your truth. It doesn't matter to me how you get there, but get there, because the world needs you to be the fullest expression of yourself as yourself.
Beautiful. And even though I'm a projector, I'm not going to wait for the aliens.
Don't say even though I'm a projector. Say, hallelujah, I'm a projector. Or as we say, hot damn.
Hot damn, I'm a projector. I'm still not going to wait for the aliens. I'm going to go with the human design.
Good. I support that.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for being with us today, Karen. This has been beyond spectacular. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Debra. I so appreciate the opportunity.
And will you come back again sometime, perhaps?
Oh, absolutely. We can talk about aliens next time.
Yes, next time we'll talk about aliens. So thank you. And thank you to everyone for spending this time with me and with Karen Curry. And I look forward to when we are all together again. This is Debra Poneman. Have a wonderful rest of your day.